happen to have this stupid condition, and I manage it, but that's not my identity. And I think I lived with that as my identity for a really long time and didn't even really realize it because I thought I needed it to legitimize the inaction.
Hi guys, welcome to Humanity Unlocked. If you're a current subscriber to this channel, welcome back and hello again. It is likely you started following here after watching the My Sick Fit Life intro series back in 2018 regarding my road to wellness with Lyme disease. And then I disappeared from YouTube. I suffered a pretty significant relapse following the release of that final video in 2018, and that is something I talk about in today's interview. There's a lot that's happened in 6 years, and we'll get into all of that. But most importantly, before we go any further, I have to tell you what's coming up for this channel. Last year on September 1st, 2023, I launched the Humanity Unlocked podcast. The goal of the podcast is to provide a glimpse into life circumstances that are often misunderstood, stigmatized, or unfairly judged due to a lack of awareness. And here especially, I think that's something we are all too familiar with. We just wrapped our second full season of the podcast, and now we are here on YouTube. We have video production for the majority of season 2, so if you prefer to watch rather than listen, you'll have full access to those videos right here on YouTube. As the host of Humanity Unlocked, I am sharing my personal story in today's episode. I thought it was important to share details of my own life that I've never talked about publicly. This obviously includes the circumstances regarding my health, but that is just one aspect of many that I talk about. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for watching and welcome to Humanity Unlocked.
First of all, I have to tell all the listeners this is it's not uncomfortable, but it's strange and feels weird to be in the interviewee's chair. So I'm going to do my best. I don't have any notes in front of me. I've given Katira my full history, so we are starting from the beginning. I was born in Orange County. My parents moved to Northern California, I believe in the Citrus Heights area, and then when they split up, I was 3 when they split up, and then we moved to Roseville. We moved into it was government subsidized housing. There's no nice way to put that. But, my mom was a single mom, obviously, at that point. And I lived in, an apartment. And in Roseville, if anybody from this area knows Roseville, it's a nice area. It's like right on the edge of Granite Bay. And so, I was the poor kid. But strangely, I didn't really feel poor because I had such a great home life. So, but it is like this dichotomy between having a great home life and having wonderful parents. But you realize that you're different, and when you're in a town like Roseville. Had I been in any other town, it wouldn't have even occurred to me that maybe I had less. So, how much further am I going on this part of my story? What's the next question, Katira?
So talk about your parents' dynamics with the relationship, they ended up divorcing.
Yes. So, okay. Yeah. So my parents split up when I was 3. They're friends to this day. I've never seen my parents fight. My dad was married a few different times. My mom was always friends with my stepmoms. They always loved my mom. My mom loved them. My mom was at all of the weddings, I think, that my dad's. We spent holidays, all of us together, and that was sort of the role models that I had as parents, as parents who were divorced. And my dad we didn't have a custody arrangement with him. He was recovering alcoholic. He got sober when my mom was pregnant with me. And so with recovery, you really have to spend so much time. A lot of time is dedicated to that. And from a very young age, I understood the importance of that. And I never really took it personally, that there wasn't this set in stone schedule where I saw my dad every other weekend. But there was an understanding that he was there when and if we needed him. He provided for us, paid child support, bought me school clothes, holidays, all the things, birthdays, had parties at his house, birthday parties and stuff. So, but there wasn't a regular custody arrangement. I wasn't super close to him. I'm actually closer with him now. And I commend him for the amount of time, he has dedicated to his recovery. So he's doing quite well. as far as my mom goes, she grew up in a very stable home, and her parents, it's funny because like, so my grandmother is from Utah and was raised Mormon, like huge Mormon family. My mom was raised Mormon. Then my parents got married. I think my dad converted. Neither one of them are no longer Mormon. They did not raise us Mormon, but I did. Well, I think they kind of started to. I got baptized Mormon and then went. But I think when my parents split up, I'm getting all of the timeline wrong. But basically, I think when my parents split up, my mom, it was kind of strange for my mom to be going to church without my dad. So she kind of left. She left the religion. Our family is still very much a part of it. And so went to more non-denominational churches, and a lot of wonderful people. I don't think it was a right fit later. So my mom had great role models for parents. Her mom was the first higher up manager. There's a more sophisticated term for that. I just can't think of what it is for at See's Candy ever.
Like the first executive?
Thank you. First executive manager at See's Candy. Her mom was my grandmother. So she's like, if you even go into See's Candy now and like mention her name, they'll like, oh yeah, she was, she's very well known and she's been passed since I was 4. And my grandfather worked for the government, for the state, for Ronald Reagan's office, when he was governor. And, so they were married until they both passed. And my mom grew up, dinner was made at a certain time every night and the house was a certain way. She had chores. I mean, it was very structured, like Leave It to Beaver family. Only her mom was very ambitious and her mom worked. So my mom, even being a single mom living in the neighborhood we lived in where you didn't see a lot of families like that, my mom still like really created a home environment that was modeled after her parents. So we had dinner every night, we had bath time, bedtime, homework. It was very structured, and it was like a well-oiled machine that my mom ran, and all on her own. And we were very, very close-knit family. I've always been close with my mom, and I modeled my parenting after my mom. And I know we're going to go on to talk about my story with my son's dad, but I modeled that after my parents. So it was a solid, difficult in terms of like the dichotomy of living in Roseville, but a solid upbringing nonetheless, I would say.
And I want to go back a little bit too when you talked about your father being a recovering alcoholic. He got really involved in Alcoholics Anonymous, and you also kind of got involved with them because he would take you to their meetings, to their dances. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so from a young age, when we go to see my dad, we would stop off at, I perceived it as stopping off at AA meetings, like on the way to go to dinner or on the way to go wherever. And so we would, I was around it from a young age, not like often, but several times a year. And there was an understanding from a young age, about addiction. And so my brother and I were both very aware of how that could be, and just hearing people's stories at a very young age. There was just this awareness of like being careful around substances. So as I got older, like I would say 13 and above, my dad was married to someone who she just took. They were all amazing women, but this particular woman, when I was a teenager, she took an interest in me and like doing my hair and makeup, and like would buy me clothes, and she would take me to the AA dances and the campouts and the picnics. And so there was just there's a community within AA that I really respect and admire. There was this Java City downtown. I want to say it was on J Street or Capitol or one of those downtown. And I just remember looking forward to, when I go to my dad's house, we'd always end up at Java City, which I think might be out of business now, and they would just all sit around drinking coffee and smoking cigarettes, and it was just like the 80s, and that's what you did for fun. I mean, you were a recovering addict, and so you found other ways to have fun, and that's kind of how I learned, that you don't have to drink to enjoy yourself on the weekends. Yeah. So. Yeah.
And then you growing up in Roseville too, you went to a pretty affluent, high school, Oakmont High School. And you didn't have a lot of things growing up like most kids that you went to school with, but your mom just kind of took in some of these kids where they didn't have attention from their parents, and they would come to your mom and they'd be able to confide in her, and
Yeah. So it's so funny because like at the time you don't really realize it, but looking back you really see it. Now that I'm a mom, but it was almost like I guess I did see it, but I didn't put the weight on it that I put on it now. So obviously we didn't have much, it was welfare, government subsidized housing. My mom, single mom, we just didn't have a lot. I mean, it was fine. We had what we needed, but not a cent more, So, but my mom was like an incredible mom, like just such a good mom. And all of my friends loved my mom, and they would like comment on her as a parent. And I'm like, she's a mom, like, okay,
You're so used
great.
to that.
Yeah. Like I loved her and I appreciate her. I was very, very close to her, but to me that's normal, right? That's what a mom is. Well, a lot of my friends, they would have so much. Like they'd have the beautiful homes and they had brand new cars when they turned 16, and they grew up in the nice neighborhoods
With
and
the nice clothes,
nice vacations, like all those things, but they were not close with their parents. Nothing against their parents. I know how hard parenting is, and I even see it with my own children's friends. Like, it is so hard to be a very engaged parent and also have a very successful career, especially when your kids are teenagers. So even at the time, I mean, I have empathy for it. I had empathy for it then. I have empathy for it now. But these kids would have the world at their fingertips, but yet all they wanted was like connection with like a mom, and they'd want to come over for dinner. Is your mom making dinner? Can I come over for dinner? Like, do you think that your mom would let me spend the night? And I'm like, my house, like I will tell you a story where, oh my gosh, this is such a horrible story. I don't know if I told you.
Well, now you have to share it.
I'm not sure if I told you this. So one of the most popular girls in school, like we took dance class together, and we'd like carpool, and she was gonna spend the night at my house, and I like was really excited, and I, got my room all ready and everything, and she was really pretty, and she was really talented at dance and everything, and she was super accepting of me and everything, didn't judge me for how I lived or where I lived. And so she came over, and we pulled out so we had, in our back door, it was like there was a gap in the weather stripping, so mice would get in. This is a terrible story. And like we had a clean house. It was not that, it was the quality of the rental. Like by then we had moved to this little teeny tiny rental home, and there was this gap in the weather stripping, and these mice would get in, and we'd have glue boards just everywhere, to catch them. And we went to pull out the trundle of my day bed, and a mouse had like dragged itself onto the trundle or something. It's a very faint memory. I don't even know exactly how that mouse on the glue board got on, but she pulled it out, and there was this dead mouse.
Oh no!
Where she was going to be sleeping. So I was like, this is odd. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, she's gonna go tell everybody. Like this, how embarrassing. She didn't tell anybody, and but it's like that kind of stuff. Like who has to worry about that, Right. But that's just, I mean, and that's not to say that like her home itself was fine. Like my mom was very, very clean, and she was actually, decorated and gave, we had nice rooms and everything. But, we lived in a shitty rental house.
Right.
That's pretty much why.
And then at the age of 16, you met your high school sweetheart.
Yeah.
So tell us about, that relationship and how it began.
Okay. So when I was 16, I met my son's dad, Everett, and he was, back then it wasn't such a big deal. He was 19, and we met like in a Taco Bell parking lot or something stupid. And I had, it got serious very, very fast.
And this is your first relationship.
Well, I had a relationship before him. It was a year long before him, and it wasn't like a sexual relationship or anything, but it was we were quote unquote in love, and we split up, and when I met Everett, he was living on his own. Like he had a rough upbringing, made my upbringing look like squeaky clean.
Nothing, yeah.
Like, yes, he had a very rough upbringing. He lived on his own, and had been living on his own since like 15, like a long time. He was like a couch surfer.
Okay.
So we started dating, and I think he again like really attached himself into my home, my family. My mom adored him, and he would like start spending the night at our house and stuff, and my mom allowed it, which now she's like, she just can't even believe it, of course. But because I'm like, Mom, what were you thinking? I would never let Jasmine ever, but never. because it would have been right around, I mean, Jasmine's 15, I was 16. So
It's almost an age.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, very quickly he integrated into our family, and very quickly our relationship got very serious. And we, within, I guess when I was about 17 and a half, somewhere around there, he got involved in it was an insurance business that did financial services, but it was like a multi-level marketing, and he did very well. And my plan after high school was to go to college. I wanted to be a therapist, or I was going to major in psychology and do something. And he was doing well, but there was this whole back end of the business that he needed help with, that it's like he couldn't stay at the pace he was, or go at the pace he wanted to go without having help. So he convinced me I'd gone to college for a year, and I'd worked full time for a property management company as a leasing agent. I was doing pretty well as an 18-year-old, and he convinced me by the time I was like 19, to leave my job and to go into business with him. And he said, "You can always go back to college. Let's make the money and go back to college later. It will always be there." And so I was like, okay, and I could see that there was a lot of potential with this company, and there definitely was, because second I came on board, it went through the roof. I mean, it's very hard to make money in these companies. This opportunity, like, for some reason, it was like that whole, what do they say? It's like lightning in a bottle. It was just the perfect time. I don't know how it all occurred, but by the time we were, and this was the 90s. So by the time we were,
I think you were like 20, right?
I was
He's
20
like
when we got
22.
married, and he was 23. I was 20 when we got married. We were already making, on the cusp of again, the 90s. We got married in 99. The cusp of six figures. By the time Jordan was born I was 23, and he was born in 2002. We were making well over six figures.
Wow, at a young
as
age.
young in a multi-level marketing financial services company. Young, and think about like the older generation trusting my husband at the time with their retirement and like their insurance. It was just crazy. And so I was just running the back end, and I worked a lot. Like, I really worked a lot, and I loved it. I really loved it. I was very passionate about the fact that I was good at what I was doing, like running an office at such a young age, and I got tons of accolades and praise for it. And it really set me up actually later on in life. I was first bitter that I had to quit college, but later on in life,
that's what you wanted to do.
yeah. I mean, initially I was like, crap, like I gave up everything. But to be honest, I matured. I learned so much about the real world being in that business that sometimes it takes a lot longer to learn, if you
Don't have that experience.
Yeah, because exiting that, I felt heads and shoulders above a lot of my peers, just in the way that I had already been working in a industry that was as sophisticated and serious, and with people that made real money for quite a while, and it started at such a young age. So it did level me up, but there was a quick fall after the split, and I had to find my way back. But
and you bought your first home together at a young age.
Yeah, we bought a home when I was 23 in Rockland, in a gated community, and it was Rockland, that's near Roseville, so it was like we're the kind of home that like my friends in high school, my quote unquote rich friends, lived in. And so it was very surreal. And then I had Jordan a couple months after we bought that home, and
I think you had come to realize that this relationship was more out of convenience more than anything.
Yeah, I mean, we were really, I don't know if I would describe it exactly. Yes, it was convenient, obviously, but we were really good friends. We still are, as good friends as you can be with your ex-husband. We were really good friends, very close friends. I felt very bonded to him, codependent for sure. We were very good business partners. We worked well with each other. We knew how to succeed together, but we did not have the kind of chemistry that a husband and wife should have. It was a lot like a father-daughter relationship, probably because I was never around relationships growing up, so I didn't really know what that looked like. And he was so far ahead in terms of like being independent, you know, and knowing how to take care of himself before I was, that he had to show me everything, how to do things and how to, you know, how to be a grown up basically. And so the dynamic of our marriage was very imbalanced. So that led to us having issues with, you know, intimacy, and just, there was just no chemistry. But man, bestest of friends, could make good money together. We had everything else going for us, made a beautiful baby. So, yeah.
And so you had your son Jordan when you're 24 years old.
24. Yeah. Was I 24 or was I 23? No, I think I had him when I was 23.
Okay.
Yeah. We split when I was 24. Yeah. And then, yeah, I had Jordan, and then 7 months later, is when he asked for the divorce. And that was for, you know, obviously it ended up being the greatest gift because how my life has turned out since then. But at the time, my world was, literally crumbling in pieces around me. I had given up college. Yeah. I had given up everything.
Like the dreams that you had.
Everything. Everything. My whole life was this man. My whole life was this business. My whole life was wrapped up in all of this. And with one decision, and this was a long time ago. This was 20 years ago. So believe me when I tell you that we are all past it. But it is part of my story. With one decision, it was all taken away. You know, it was all taken away. And so it was, I, you know, packed up and, initially it was a little bit contentious because I didn't want to leave the house. But then I realized it was going to be best for Jordan and I. So I packed a bag for Jordan, and we went to my mom's, and there I was back in my mom's home, and back to square one.
From the beginning.
Yeah, but I will say that initially, Jordan's dad came to me and he said, you know, I fought for the marriage for a couple months before really throwing in the towel. But he said, I really want to do what your parents did, and I would like for us to be friends, and I would like for us to have an amicable, you know, co-parenting relationship. Which, of course, I wouldn't know how to do it any other way because that's all I know. So there was always good intentions from the beginning for us to parent in a civil, respectful way, which we went on to do. So, yeah.
And then, so 4 months, you know, after your divorce, you met your current husband, Mark. Tell us how this relationship kind of unfolded.
So Mark and I met at the Powerhouse Pub in 2003 in Folsom, and we were both there for the first time. I'd given up my youth for work and my marriage. And like happily gave it up. Like I didn't feel like I was missing anything.
Right.
And so I was just starting to like understand what it meant to like go out and enjoy nightlife. So there was this cover band playing. I was going to say the name, but now I can't think of the name. Anyway, it was a cover band, and I went with a couple friends. He went with a couple friends.
Wonder Bread 5?
No, it wasn't. It wasn't Wonder Bread 5, but it was one like that. And Mark's gonna watch this later, and he's gonna be like, "It's
that band.
It's that band." Anyway, so one of my friends and one of his friends knew each other. So they're like, "Hey, haven't seen you." And then of course, by default, I meet Mark. I get introduced to Mark. And as we're leaving, as towards the end of the night, and as we're leaving, I had never in my life, except for my first boyfriend and then my ex-husband, ever given a boy my phone number, ever in my life. And certainly did not know what this world was going to be like, nor was I interested in like entering it. So he takes the approach of, you know, business, of course. And at the time he was doing loans, and he was like, well, if you ever need to buy or sell a home, like, or whatever, like
card.
Something like that, and gives me his card. And I go, oh, I have a card. And I had made up these cards that have my name, my phone number, my email, which I just started an email, and my zodiac sign, Sagittarius. And so, because it was one of the templates. So I was like, sure, I'll take that one. So anyway, I was like, I have a card. First person I ever gave that card to, probably the last. I don't think I gave another person that card. But I'm thinking, I'm going to go out. I'm going to meet people. I'm going to meet friends. All of my friends had to be loyal, basically, to my ex-husband, because most of our friends worked with us. So it's not as if they were choosing him like they like him better, but it was like, it was just too awkward to be friends with us both. I think I had maybe one or two that I continued to have friendships with. But so it was my stepsister and one friend that I went out with that night. And I wanted to meet new friends. I wanted to, you know, I was embarking on a new life. And so I gave him my card. He gave me his. I did not expect to hear from him. I had never played this game before. And 2 days later, he called me, and I said, within the first 5 minutes of the phone conversation, because he didn't know anything about me, I said, I just have to be upfront with you, and I will totally understand if you want to end this conversation, never talk again. Like, it will not hurt my feelings. I said, I'm a single mom. I'm 24. By then I was 24. I'm living at home with my mom in Sacramento in a rundown condo. I'm unemployed, and I'm going through a divorce. My son is 1 year old. I totally get it if you want to hang up now. And he, like, I could hear, like,
Silence?
like a little bit of a, like, and he goes, I actually really admire your honesty. And obviously I was expecting him to be like, well, you know, it was really nice meeting you, but it probably won't work. I did not expect him to want to stay on the phone. He was like, okay, that's a lot, but I admire your honesty. And I was just like, well, listen, I'd rather you find out now than later. And, you know, and I, honest to God, had no intentions on dating. I was still very new outside my marriage.
Right.
And we were on the phone for 4 hours that night, and we clearly had chemistry conversationally. And we had, like, our first date, like, I don't know, the next time I would go out whenever Jordan was at his dad's house. So yeah. And then I really pumped the brakes on that. I just said, you know, I am just now getting over my marriage. Like, I am just now healing, and I can't bring myself to, like, get back in that position to have this happen to me again.
Right.
And he was
always fear.
Yeah. And I was, and he was always like, well, what makes you think it's going to happen again? And I was like, well, I don't know, you know, we just met. So, I kept him at arm's length for a really, really long time in every way you can imagine. And I think he'd never been handled that way by a woman, by a girl. Like, he'd never been, like, it's not resisted, because that's not like, oh, Mark's irresistible, but usually he got his way, you know, like, girls liked him. And I did like him a lot, actually, but it's almost like I need to, like, stay low guarded, you know, because I don't know.
And figure out what I'm going to do.
Yeah, and I had a child. So fast forward a few months, and we ended up, okay, I actually tried to break up with him, but then he was, like, sad, like, on the verge of tears. He's like, why would you do this? Like, why would you do? He's like, you know, like, this is, you know, for what reason? Like, other than fear, like, why would you? And so I was like, okay, all right. And I'll hang in a little while longer. So anyway, long story short, we end up, you know, entering into this relationship. I ending up introducing him to my son. And 3 years from the time we met, we got married. Yeah. And so began the next 20 years. Yeah. So where we're at now.
And then so after you got married, then you kind of worked your way up in another position as a property manager.
Yeah.
And then you bought your first home in Anatolia, in Rancho Cordova.
Yeah. So right after I got married, I was promoted. This whole time, once Jordan's dad and I split up, I obviously had to go find a job and go back to work. And so, my girlfriend was managing she had stayed in property management from when we were teenagers. She was managing an apartment complex in El Dorado Hills, and she needed an assistant manager. So she asked me if I wanted the job, because she knew I was looking. I needed to work, and the job came with a free apartment. And so I said, yes, please, I'll take it. And so I took the job, and so I ended up working as an assistant manager for the next few years. It kind of coincided with the time Mark and I were dating. And then when we got married was right around the time she was actually getting promoted. I believe she was either getting promoted or she was leaving the company for a better position. And I was promoted then into her position. So I started working as a property manager, which not my finest work, but it's like yeah. That's all I'll say about that. But.
And so life was, really, it was great. You were happy. And then life kind of turned around. So, life turned around for you in many positive ways. But then out of the blue, your physical health took like a turn for the worse.
Yeah.
And you had, been at work one day and just started to notice your legs were getting weak. And you thought maybe, I'm probably just sore from working out the gym. What kind of happened at that point?
So I was maybe... I was, I guess, a year into, because Mark and I had been married a year, and I was a year into that position, and I had just this. Back then, I worked out in the gym 5 days a week. I got up really early in the morning. I got there when they opened, and I was very disciplined and dedicated, and I just thought I had my leg muscles were weak, like and for a few days I just noticed them getting, and I just thought, oh, maybe I overdid it, and okay, this doesn't feel like how it would normally feel, but I was too busy to even pay attention. So, but they got weaker and weaker and weaker. And then to the point where I went to get up from my chair one day, and my legs wouldn't hold me. Like my knees literally buckled every time I tried to get up. And so then my assistant manager, the one who I'd hired to replace me, she was a leasing agent, put her and promoted her to assistant. She and I were good friends. She's like, her name is Becca. For those who are listening may know who she is. She's still my very, very dear friend. I always say she's my kid's godmom. She's 17 years older than me. And she said, Kim, this is not normal. It could be something neurological. We have to take you to emergency. So they wheeled me, since I couldn't walk.
So she took you to the ER department.
Yeah, they wheeled me out into the car in my desk chair, her and the maintenance manager. And they put me in the car, and then I went to the ER, and I spent, I think, 2 days, one night and 2 full days there, and I got turned inside out with testing, all the testing, right? So you get the MRI and the lumbar puncture and all the labs and the nerve conduction studies and the EMGs, and there was some abnormalities in the tests.
Yeah, I think you mentioned like the spinal tap.
Yeah, there was elevated protein in the spinal tap. My nerve conduction studies were highly irregular, which means the nerves are not talking to the brain, kind of thing. And they were saying this looks like MS, and so they were doing all the tests for that. But the one diagnostic test for MS is the MRI, and if you do not have lesions in your brain for the MRI or your spinal cord, they kind of like
rule it out.
Yeah, you cannot be given that diagnosis. And it's not at that point, all I cared about was literally getting back on my feet. Like this, I don't have time for this shit. Like I was just very, like, we just need to figure this out because I'm busy.
Life is busy.
Yeah. And so it actually ended up, they released me and they said, follow up with your primary care. We don't know what's wrong with you. So it actually ended up going away. And then I completely forgot about it, got back to work, got back to my life. By that time, Jordan was 5. Mark and I had been married a year. We hadn't gotten pregnant with Jasmine yet. We hadn't even thought about that yet. And then I did get pregnant with, like a couple months later, I did end up getting pregnant with her. And that's when it got real. That's when like it really got real because when right after I found out I was pregnant, it came back, but it came back in my arms. And I was writing at my desk with the pen, and I lost my grip, and I kept trying to pick up the pen and I couldn't pick it up, and I had all this nerve pain shooting up my arm and weakness, and I couldn't make a fist. And so I went home that day, obviously called my doctor, and they brought me in for an MRI, and they brought me in for an MRI without contracts because I was pregnant at that point. But and they just said like, okay, well, we don't know what's wrong with you, and again, and because you're pregnant, we can't, any treatment that we could try and give you, we can't because you're pregnant.
Yeah, it's too dangerous.
So that was like off and on it was like this 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off. Like I'd have symptoms for 2 weeks, and then they would just sort of subside. Like they would just go away, and I was like, oh, they're gone. And then 2 weeks off, and then I would just go about my business, go about work, whatever, and then they'd come back. And then they go away, and then they come back. It was like 2 weeks. It was like a pattern because I was keeping track of it. And I started to keep track of it after a while. After I noticed that it was doing this weird thing, and then it was literally 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off. So then, it started, those periods of reprieve started getting shorter and shorter, and then those little relapses started getting longer. And so at that point, I resigned because I was missing so much work. I mean, my assistant manager was driving me to work. She would come to my house after work, and she was a single woman when her kids were older, and she was helping you with Jordan, take care of Jordan. She's such an amazing woman. Yeah, I just have to say, like, I love her so much. She was my angel. She'd drive me home from work. She would make dinner for our family. She'd give him a bath. She'd make sure he got his homework done. She'd put him to bed, and then the next day she'd get up and she'd get him ready for school and like help me get ready for work. And like she'd drive me to work, and then I would just sit in my chair and I would dictate to her what to do. Right. Because I didn't have a lot of like, at that point, I think it was mostly my arms because I couldn't like compute type and everything. So, but I was walking. So, then once it started migrating to my legs, and so my arms and my legs were gone, I resigned. I mean, yeah, I resigned because I filed for temporary disability, and just to get me through the rest of my pregnancy and to give me a little time to figure out what was going to happen next.
Right.
So
And then I think you said 5 months into your pregnancy, the symptoms disappeared.
5 months into my pregnancy, yep. So it was like 2 months after I resigned. If I would have just held on, 2 months after I resigned, all of the symptoms were lifted. Like, and the doctor told me, he said, well, that's not uncommon for people with autoimmunity, because when your immune system is suppressed, and naturally when you're pregnant, it is, because everything's going to the baby. When your immune system is suppressed, the body, the whatever condition this is, if it's autoimmunity, it doesn't have anything to attack because the immune system is not activated. So a lot of times it will go dormant. So it's not surprising. So I was like, okay, so are you saying I have an autoimmune condition? And they're like, most likely we just don't know what it is. So whatever, I don't care. I'm feeling good. So I went the rest of my pregnancy, the remaining 4 months or whatever it was, feeling amazing. I loved it. I wasn't working. I was just getting ready, for my baby. I mean, it was really wonderful. And then, she was born, and then a month to the day, a month to the actual day, because she was born on June 5th, 2008, and on July 5th, 2008 was the day after 4th of July, everything came back. Bad, really bad. The arms, the legs, the hands, everything. Rushing back, and I remember I was standing making a pot of coffee. That's back before Keurigs. I remember I was making a pot of coffee, and I felt my knees buckle. And so I grabbed on, I made my way to the couch. It's like it happened so quick that time. And then boom, like laid out. And then I went to the doc. I called my doctor, and he said, go to the emergency room now. Now that you're not pregnant, we can, turn you inside out basically. And so we did. And it was still nothing really, it wasn't super clear. He was acknowledging, this looks like MS to me. This is what MS looks like. Everything about what you say, all your, but without
symptoms,
without this positive MRI, I can't. And I didn't care about the diagnosis. I just wanted just give me whatever is going to make me better. I have a brand new baby,
right?
And so I said, okay, so it looks like MS, but it's not MS. He goes, no, it's not. And I said, okay, well, if it's not MS, then what could it be? And he goes, it can't be anything but MS. And I go, okay, so it can't be anything but MS, but it looks like MS, but it's not MS.
And you have no lesions in your
Tell me what
brains
what are you saying to me? What conversation are we even having right now? I don't understand. And he realized we were talking in circles. And the truth is it could be a million other things, but he was, as wonderful as he was, and I will say he was wonderful. He was a resident. He didn't have a lot of authority, and B, I think that he was still new in neurology. I mean, like to him,
he's still in training.
He was looking for, what do they say? Look for horses, not zebras, or something. There's like a saying in medicine. So he wasn't looking at other differential diagnoses. So anyway, so I just went home that day, and I was frustrated, and I just got online, and I wasn't like a big internet person at that time. We were talking like 2008. So I made my way around Google and was looking for doctors that I don't know, reading reviews and stuff. And that's how I found Dr. Hasid, has been my doctor up until just in June. He retired. Worst day of my life.
And was he the one that prescribed you some steroids?
Yeah. So I went to see him, and he was highly recommended, and he had his own practice in Davis Institute of, we'll end up closing it, so I don't remember the name, but Institute of something. Oh man, now that's going to bother me. Anyways, okay, so he had his own practice, and he just said, well, and I think with your own practice, it's a little bit different. Plus, he was a very established neurologist with many years behind him. And he said, well, it can't hurt trying a trial of something. Are you up for that? And I said, abso-freaking-lutely.
Anything.
Let's do it. Yeah. And so he said, well, let's do this. We can do a trial of steroids, do some Solumedrol. Let's start with a drip. Come in 3 days this week. We'll put you on an IV, and then you do some take-home stuff, and then we'll do. There was something else too. Some other it was Cortef is what he sent home with me. And then my gosh, I'm blanking on the other one, but there was something else he gave me. And with those two, I felt an immediate difference. I had strength and everything. And he said, well, if you're responding to that, then it is definitely autoimmunity, because what these meds do is they're suppressing your immune system. You know, that's what steroids do.
Right.
So, and then now your body's not attacking itself. So it's something. So then anyway, so he goes, well, do you want to try a trial of Copaxone, which was an MS injection? And I said, yeah, let's do it. And so I did that. I was on injectables so he ended up diagnosing me with MS. I ended up forming a little lesion in my brain on my left frontal lobe. But I even think he diagnosed me before he saw it. He goes, you know what? Sometimes lesions take years and years to develop. So that's not a hard no in my book. So, So then I was good. I was good for a couple years after that, I would say. And it was stable, and he was amazing. And I'm sad that he retired. Yeah.
So at this point, like, your health, you know, it's finally improving. And you just really want to move on from all of this and get back to life and begin working again.
Yeah.
So then you had decided that you wanted to be a fashion stylist and become a wholesaler. So tell me a little bit about that transition.
It's funny now looking back on it. So like 2009, so we're talking like a year after treatment, a year after I was on my feet, I mean, it may have even been months. I was like, I have got to work. You know, I cannot do this. I cannot stay at home and be a stay-at-home mom. And I got to do something. Like, I don't need to be gone all the time. I didn't want to be gone all the time, but I have to do something. You know, I can't. And so who I was back then is so very different from who I am now. Now I love being a mom. I love being home with my kids. Like, there's no place I'd rather be. And anybody who knows me well knows that. Like, it's my favorite. I'm such a homebody, but back then I was not. And so I don't even know. I think I saw somebody on TV like doing these things called trunk shows, and I'm like, I could do that. So I just did some research, and I got licensed to be a buyer at the LA Fashion District. Well, a buyer, I guess, nationwide. But I went to what do they call that? Where they open it up for you to buy. Like, there's a couple times a year where they do that. Market Week in LA. I had my license to buy, and so you buy all these clothes at wholesale. And back then, jeans were really in. If you think of like True Religion and all those jeans, so I could buy and then at wholesale price, and then just do a small, not as big of a markup as like the boutiques and department stores were doing, but just a little markup, because I didn't have any overhead except for the cost of the clothes. So I could afford to sell them cheaper. So I was like, okay, well, let me just go buy some clothes. I'll set up some racks in my formal dining room, and and then I'll just book these trunk shows, and people can shop and drink champagne. I'll bring champagne, and it will be great. And it was great. It was so much fun, but I made like no money. Like, it was very, first of all, people were still having a hard time paying. Even the wholesale price of those jeans was high. Like, so to, back then, paying $110 for a pair of jeans, like, it wasn't the response that you. So what we ended up doing is we would sell a lot of like accessories and tops and stuff, but like the higher price items that would make you money, like, we were not. So we would end up discounting them and then end up selling them at cost. And so I was in and out of that really quick, but I ended up parlaying that little trunk show business into fashion production and PR, because I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. We produced a couple fashion shows and to benefit the MS Society, and I had my friends model in it, and I recruited some people to do hair and makeup. Like, it was all this whole thing, like in Sacramento, like I did, and it was so much fun, and everybody loved it and responded well to it. And I just thought, you know what? There's a good little fashion community in Sacramento. I can how about I become a PR person and represent these stylists that are like just out of like FITM, like Fashion Institute of Merchandising Technology, or Merchandising and Fashion Institute Merchandising and Design. So so then, like, I accumulated these clients who were crazy enough to hire me, and then I partnered with my family photographer to like do photo shoots, and he had a studio, and so we had these big dreams of like being this company, and God bless us. And so we ended up, but the one great thing we did was we produced the first very large fashion show in Sacramento, which is at the Memorial Auditorium in 2010. We produced the Tiana Vega fall or spring collection. Gosh, this was so long ago, but it was so beautiful. That show was so beautiful. It was, we got everything donated because it was to benefit a charity, not MS, but Sweet Dreams Foundation. And it was beautiful lighting, beautiful staging, beautiful models, beautiful clothes, everything was just, and I was like, I cannot believe I did this. Like, how did I pull this off?
And I think you told me too, that's still to date the largest fashion show in Sacramento.
That's what I'm told. Have there been others? I think we paved the way for others, but I have not. I don't know. I don't know if we were the largest. I'm sure we were definitely the first to do it like that, because most people did it in nightclubs, and so we were the first to like get a venue, an actual like venue. Sacramento Fashion Week took off. You know, they were already like up and coming, and I remember I was going to work on their project. I was going to partner with them on that following year, but my health took a turn after that show at the Memorial Auditorium, and they ended up showcasing at Sacramento Fashion Week ended up showcasing at Memorial Auditorium, and then they ended up moving to a different venue, and they got, I think the fashion scene in Sacramento was really blowing up at that time, so we were just harnessing it. Sacramento Fashion Week, the producers there were harnessing it, so it was really an awesome time, but unfortunately I was only able to be a part of it for a short time before I experienced the largest relapse of my life to date.
Right, because I think you said you had done this job from 2008 to 2010 and just kind of worked yourself to death.
Yeah. So I just never recovered. It's like I went home and I thought, I'm just going to, because I worked so hard to get to do that show. Like my adrenals were working overtime. And I remember even my doctor saying, Kim, you've got to slow down. This is going to come back and bite you. And it did. And I went home, that night feeling so good about the show and just being so relieved. And I feel like I don't think I got out of bed it was many, many days. Right. And I had to pull out of SacFat. I was so upset because I was like, dang it, man. I was just like,
getting started again.
Had it. Yeah. And so I had done some damage to myself, like clearly done some damage to myself, because at that point it was like I needed meds to like even like get out of bed. So it was from like August of 2010 till November. It was a very long relapse, like to get me like moving normally.
Right.
And do you want me to continue on with?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then in November, I like found my legs and like I was like, okay, here I am. And then I could feel like things had shifted, things had changed. I was really dependent on sleeping a certain amount, and I was really dependent on, like, I couldn't manipulate my body the same way as I was used to, and I needed like IVs, and it was just, I had done some damage. But so I, and all of my glory, decided to go out with a bang and just took my social life, pushed it as far as I could take it. And I just really partied hard. Not like partied hard like I was telling you in the pre-interview. It wasn't like I was drinking a ton and like doing crazy stuff. It wasn't that. It's just that I wanted to be anywhere but home.
To not think about.
Where I was constantly reminded how bad I felt. When I was out, because maybe that was my prime or whatever, and I was looking my best and feeling on top of the world because of what I'd accomplished, and I'd met all these new people. I needed that validation that, I don't know, like I was probably being validated a lot by the way I looked, I'm sure, the way I dressed and stuff, but I don't know, any validation was enough validation, because I wasn't working. So before, it was like the currency for me was like the accolades I got on my work, and it's okay, I can't do that anymore, so I need to look for a new form of currency. And now it's going to be people, telling. That's why when people are so attention seeking with their looks on wherever, Instagram, whatever, in the club, I get it, because I was one of those people. So it's like, you'll take it how you can get it, Right. And at that point I was so low. So I pushed on from, like, I really pushed myself, like, partying anybody that was around me back then will remember. I still didn't really, I wouldn't go out if I had my son. He was with his dad we were week on, week off at that point. So we had gone from every other weekend to, after Jasmine was born, shortly after that, we were doing week on, week off, 50-50. So, but when he was gone, those weeks,
you took a lot of girl trips.
Whoa,
Yeah,
girls, man. So it was like November till 2010 to, I remember in June of 2011 saying, or May or June, going, I think I'm done.
Right.
I think I got it all out of me. Because I never really had, if you think of it, I never had those years. Not that I really needed them, but I don't know. There was this like, it was like temporary insanity or something.
You grew up so fast because you got married so young, had a child so young.
Yeah. But it was just, it felt you can judge it all day long looking back at it. I'm sure everybody does that in some way with their life. And I look at it going, my baby was at home, my husband was so supportive at that time. Like, I don't even know how, but I think he recognized, because he had a fraternity, like very active social life up until his mid-20s when he met me at 20. He was 25. And, he had tons of girlfriends and tons of relationships and tons of partying and he got it all out of his system. And when he met me, he was like ready to settle down. I had never done that. And not that I ever felt like I needed it, but it was like I got a little bit of a taste of it. And I was like, this feels good. I like this. Like
it's fun. You're having fun.
Yeah. And I was getting a payoff, clearly, because I wouldn't keep doing it if I wasn't. Right. So in June, I finally, like, my body was like, you're done. And even mentally, I was like, I'm done, so.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, your health, continued to decline, and, what did that look like for you? I mean, you had mentioned to me too, at one point, you were bound in a wheelchair for a while.
Yeah. So, the end of the second half of 2011 I was going like swiftly downhill again. And all of 2012, I was pretty much in a wheelchair, or like leaving 2011, I might have been. And it was like I could be like at home. I could, walk, because I wouldn't go very far, distances. But if I left the house, I had to be in a wheelchair because my legs would always buckle. And I couldn't drive myself very often.
Cognitive issues, memory issues.
Memory issues. My grip on the steering wheel, that was like, would touch and go. Like, I couldn't drive myself very often. So that's when I realized that I have to take this seriously. Like, this is not a joke. So I was in and out of, so anytime we left the house, pretty much in 2012, I was in a wheelchair. And then halfway through 2013, maybe it was 2 years total. And my cognitive, so around that time, not only was there weakness and nerve pain, my cognitive started going in and out, where I'd have memory issues. Like, I'd forget things like, my phone number, my address, my PIN number for my debit card. I'd forget where things were in the kitchen. Like, I'd go to maybe get a bowl or a plate, and I couldn't remember where they were kept in my kitchen. Stuff like that, like really bizarre things. Like, I just forget,
And that's scary.
Very scary. And then cognitively, I had a hard time talking and writing and word find. And so it made me very insecure, because I didn't ever want to leave my house, A, because of the wheelchair, but B, even if I did leave, and people, oh, how are you doing? And it's like, I didn't always feel like I had the capacity to articulate how I was doing. And so mentally, I was I felt like I lived in a prison in my mind. Like, I could think my feelings and my thoughts, I knew, I was aware of how I felt, and was aware that you can't speak. Like, it's almost like I was trapped in a mind and a body, but I couldn't express it. It was very bizarre. It's like being in a prison. And so, I didn't feel comfortable at all. I just wanted to be left alone. I truly wanted to be left alone. I didn't think any of my peer group would know how to respond to that.
Right.
And that's nothing against them. It's just that I wouldn't know how. Who knows how? So I elegantly removed myself from just a lot of things, extracted myself. I think the term is elegantly extracted myself. And I didn't want, people would want to, come over and support, sit with me or whatever. And I didn't return phone calls. I didn't text people back. I didn't want them to come to my house. I didn't want people to see me that way, because you got to think, in my mind, I'm this other person, the part, going out, producing fashion shows, this worker bee,
and that's how they knew you then.
Yeah. And so imagine like introducing them to this new, very fragile, broken and I didn't even know me. How could they know me?
Right. How can you explain this?
Yeah. Like, And so, I think a lot of people think, in that time they thought it was against them. It really wasn't. It was like, I didn't even know me. So I didn't know how to even like move comfortably in my own environment, and in the environment, my head environment, and, physically. So it was very rare that I would see people. And,
so it really impacted your social life. What about family life?
Mark and I got closer. Like he was really, he is very special. Like, I was meant to meet him. I say this all the time, and I'm not like, I've been with man for 20 years, and I have put him through so much, with everything, with my illness and everything. He's never uttered a single complaint. Mm-hmm. He's never complained. And it's a big deal to everybody. And it's a big deal to me that he's stuck with me. But it's not to him, it's not to him. And so I don't know why it's not. It would be to me if I had to take care of somebody, because we're talking like to the point where I was wondering, there was a period of time where I was wondering, like, am I going to be able to, is there going to be a time where I'm going to need him to like help me go to the bathroom, like, do all the things in the bathroom? Mm-hmm. Like, am I going to lose that? Luckily I had one hand that was better than the other, so I was able to maneuver just fine in the restroom. But but he had to get me on and off the toilet. Like, there was a level of participation in my caregiving that you don't ever want your husband to have to be a part of. And he just was very steady, calm, strong force that never felt bothered by it. It never made me feel bad, because I'd always apologize, like, you didn't sign up for this and stuff like that. And I think he did a good job making me understand why it wasn't a big deal to him. He's the kind of person that, first of all, he's got a really high tolerance for discomfort. He's in a very high stress career, and it's like nothing to him, so his tolerance for things, for feeling inconvenience, is high already. And I think, he has told me over the years, he's like, the reason why it's not hard, he goes, because you've never, like, okay, so a lot of people, for example, I know a lot of people in the chronic illness community, and, I've interacted with a lot of people, and when you're sick, like, it is very easy to get pissed off at the world, about everybody around you, and just have anger outbursts. And I just was not really prone to anger. I was more prone to, maybe crying, being emotional like I am now. And I never took it. I just, for whatever reason, never felt the need to take it out on him or take it out on anybody. And I actually felt the need to continuously show gratitude for him, because for me, that's all I had at that point. I'd lost everything. I'd lost everything. And I had my husband, I had my kids, and I was just so grateful for them, because like, they were my world. They were the reason why, they were the reason for everything. Right. So I was just always talking about it. And I think the fact that I was always talking about it, because I genuinely felt that way, I think that helped him, because I think when someone knows that they're your reason, they're your person, and like, it just, for him, it was almost like I was pouring into him without even really realizing it. And so that's maybe why. And he did a good job of explaining that to me, like, you make this very easy for me, you're not a hard person to take care of. So So it, our family got closer. We actually went through, that was sort of around the, the end of the recession. And so financially we were not doing well at all. We ended up selling our, the home we bought after we got married. And, we ended up downsizing into a much smaller home. Well, first of all, I couldn't do the stairs. That was one reason. But secondly, we couldn't afford it.
Right.
So,
because at this time you were kind of like looking into what type of treatment options were available.
Yeah, yes.
And then you found that treatment center in Reno.
Yeah, so we were very broke because of, the recession and everything, and I'm not bringing in income, and he was having to take care of me so much that he was losing money, because also too, imagine like we have Jasmine who's like 2, 3, 4, around there, and so he's taking her to like showings, listing appointments, and like just basically going in there saying, I'm really sorry, I have a sick wife at home and she doesn't have the capacity to take care of our daughter. Would you mind if I bring her? And we got lucky. I mean, the clients would be like, oh my gosh, what a wonderful husband you are. Like he had wound up like your daughter in his favor for some reason. So, and she was cute and that helped, with her little curls. But, so I was introduced to the idea that what I was going through, because mind you, as I'm going downhill, everything that had worked for me in the past stopped working. So I was not responding to steroids.
All the treatments.
None of it was working anymore, which, so I was like at this standstill, like, oh my gosh, well, what am I going to do now? Like the Copaxone for the MS that we thought I had was not working. Nothing was working. And we would try upping things. I was taking very high doses of steroids and it was not working. In fact, like I was still sleeping just fine. Like people would be wired AF if they took the amount that I was taking. And I was like, no, I don't feel a difference. And so I got introduced to the idea that a lot of people that have MS actually have Lyme disease. And so I was sent by a close family friend of mine. I was sent the movie Under Our Skin, which is about Lyme disease. It's like a documentary. And she told me that she had Lyme disease and that, told me about this clinic in Reno. And so I was like, I'll do anything. And that's like the desperation, like you'll do anything. And so
now you're looking like at a more holistic approach because all the treatments weren't working.
All the nothing worked, nothing. So I call up, I make a consultation appointment. It's like $500 for the consultation. Plus it's in Reno in the snow. So you have to stay overnight. You have to stay overnight because the next day you go in to get your lab results. You do your labs. It's like overnight labs. So it's a $500 consultation. And then you got to pay for obviously your hotel stay and gas and all that. So we had zero money, like none. Like we were taking in coins to the Coinstar and like cashing those. And that's how we got our chains for driving the snow. So and this was December of 2012. And so I called my dad and I asked him, can you give us $700? It would be enough for the consultation and for the hotel and gas and everything. And so he did. And I said, it's a loan, I'll pay you back. And we did and all that. But that's the only way we would have. We had no credit. Our credit cards were maxed out. I think we were filing bankruptcy. So we went and they do this test. It's called a dark field microscope exam where they put blood under they take blood and they put it on this little slide under a microscope and it comes up on this big screen and you can see what's going on with your blood. And my blood was just infested with this spirochete bacteria that is Lyme disease. And they were like, well, your Lyme test hasn't come back yet, but clearly, I mean, it was disgusting. And they're like, this is what normal, they were showing pictures, this is what normal cells look like, this is yours. And so, they told me what treatment there would look like. Basically it would be, they said usually about 6 weeks, on average. And then they gave me the cost, which is like minimum of $20,000. And I'm like, well, geez,
how am I going to pay for
this? That sounds great, but I don't really know. And they were like, well, some people fundraise. And so my husband was like, let's try that. So we went home and then we immediately got like a GoFundMe going and we were able to raise so that was late December, from January to June. I entered treatment in July. So January to July. We raised a third of the cost. We raised over $7,000. It was like $7,500 to at least get me started. Like we just knew that, okay, we can go on $7,500. Let's just see what happens. Like we'll just start. And my dad's friend had a condo in Reno, like down the street from the clinic. Just this is very coincidental. And I always say like, it's God, like this moon aligned with the stars and everything. Yeah. And he was staying with his girlfriend at the time, and his condo wasn't being used. He was paying, still paying. He's like, well, she can stay. My dad asked, he's like, if you're not using your condo, can Kim stay there? And so I stayed there free. So that lowered the cost a bit, because normally it would be closer to like 25,000, and up. And then Becca, who was my initial caregiver, who worked with me at the leasing office, she had in the interim had moved to Idaho and then got laid off at a job. They were downsizing. She got laid off, so she was coming back to Sacramento, and she offered to go with me and stay with me the whole time.
Wow.
Which is, she's like the exact caregiver you want if you're going, because Mark, Jasmine's at home, so is Jordan.
And he
Jordan's,
has to work, and
he has to work. Jasmine's full time at that. She's still little. And Jordan's in school, and he could have stayed with his dad, but with the work, Mark's work, and with Jasmine, it was impossible for him to stay there with me for 6 weeks.
Right.
And you have to have a caregiver, like this kind of therapy, you absolutely have to. And so she went with me, and I'm telling you, like, everything aligned so perfectly between her and the condo and raising the money. And when I was gone, it's this weird thing that happened. Business picked up. Mark was able to turn it around. My family kicked in with helping watch Jasmine. Not that they hadn't before, but it was like everything was there was like this momentum that we were gaining, and things were just sort of working in our favor, and we were able to pay the remaining money and fund the rest of it ourselves. And so it was about $22,000 for the treatment, and I left feeling and I have a whole video of this on YouTube, and I left feeling a good 50% better, because I went in pretty much in a I don't think I wheeled in a wheelchair. I had a limp. So I had like, did I have a walker? No, I didn't no, I just had the limp. And I'm trying to think, because I have pictures. And I'm like thinking back to the pictures I took. So by the time I left after 6 weeks, no limp, felt a hard 50% better. And then it was sort of like the situation of like how it was explained to me at the clinic was, what's driven you here is you have zero adrenaline. Your body's not strong enough to fight this. That's why, So you're going to have to protect your stress levels when you go back, because that's what's gotten you to this level. That's what's gotten you here. And so I immediately think like, oh my gosh, okay, I'm going back to money situation, not being able to take care of my home, kids, and I'm like, oh, I'm going back to stress. Not anything unusual that the average mother doesn't deal with, but when you're sick, everything feels heightened, and it's hard on your body. So so I was talking to Mark on the phone, and he was like, I wonder if Becca would move in with us since she's not working, if we paid her like a little bit of money. And he's like, let's just try it. If she's willing, let's just try it.
You can't lose.
Like right now we can afford it. And it was like literally week by week, we were just sort of playing everything by ear, but business was picking up. Like this was the rebound after the recession. So we moved her into our he moved his office into the front of in our dining room. She moved into the guest room, and she lived with us for 2 years. Wow. And the amount of recovery I was able to do between the clinic and her living with me, and literally taking away every single thing that you could imagine that you would stress about, between her and Mark, it was off my plate, and all I had to focus on was my healing.
Right.
So,
that's wonderful.
Yeah. So she was getting, she was at the point where she needs medical insurance, she needs retirement. So we were talking about that, and I was like, it's time. I need to learn I need to take this over. You can pass it, it's okay. Pass the baton back to me. I'll do it. So she left, we're still close friends today. And miraculously, when she left, I started on the treatment regimen I'm still on, a variation of it that I've been on since she left, and I was responding to this treatment, like the treatment I didn't formally respond to. So that's how I was able to take over and continue. And then I just really I was really careful about my time and my stress. And so, yeah.
So, and there's some other steps you took to continue, on your health journey. So some of that, you'd mentioned you had gained, some weight, or you were at 170 pounds.
Yeah.
And you knew you needed to lose some weight. So what did you do? What other steps did you take to kind of get your health even more,
So I was like 100. I'm like normally in 140, 145. That would be like my average. And I had gone up to 170. I'm 5'10". So I carry it somewhat well when I'm heavier, but you know, you don't feel your best obviously and I was so sedentary when she was doing everything for me, and she would cook. I mean, like I before was too tired to even worry about eating, but like when I was on my own. So she was feeding me like 3 square meals a day, you know, like I was eating. And so when I was sedentary, so I put on weight. And so when she left, you know, by the time she left, I was 170, and I just said, I've got to figure this out. So I ended up, one of the last pieces before I ended up embarking on the weight loss journey was I had been diagnosed with SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. And I went to Open Medicine, which is, they're affiliated with Stanford, who I'd also been referred to. And I was seeing a doctor there. And I got treated for SIBO. And that treatment, I'm saying that like I felt like whatever last piece of the puzzle was left, that like the medication really wasn't covering for me in terms of alleviating symptoms. That treatment for that SIBO, like I felt like I got a raise in energy, like how you get a raise at work. Like, but for me, it was like I got a strength raise. So I immediately was like, okay, I think I could actually work out. I think I could actually like take on some of these, take on the responsibility of losing weight, like everything that would entail. So, Lupe, who's my trainer, even still, her husband and Mark are colleagues. And so I was introduced to her, and, then, you know, I started working out with her, and she gave me a macro food plan, which is, you know, protein, carbs, fat, like this is your ratio, stick within your ratio. And so I started to do that, and I was losing weight. And I was like, if macros are very cool, because you can pretty much eat whatever you want as long as it fits your macros. Like there's actually a website called If It Fits Your Macros. So it was the easiest weight I've ever lost. And it was really more about the food than it was the working out. The working out is what got me my strength back, but the food is what actually helped me lose my weight, because I was eating differently. So a few months in, you know, I'd lost about half the weight, and I'd lost like almost all of the weight that I wanted to lose. But then she had been a competitor, like a fitness competitor, and I just was like, I wonder if I could do something like that, because I'm so goal oriented, and you got to understand, like at this point I had not done jack shit in like so long. And so I'm just like, I just need something to shoot for, something to reach for. It could have been anything. Like this was just the thing that was in front of me. Like,
did she kind of push you towards that
no,
goal, or
she
was
didn't
that just
push
you and
me.
your
She was
own?
just like, sure, we could do it. Like, no, I was just asking. Like, I mean, first of all, I don't enjoy work. I mean, I've worked out for so long that now it doesn't occur to me to not enjoy it, so it's fine. But I did not enjoy working out. This was not fun for me. I'm not it could not be, I'm not an athlete. So anyway, I was like, oh, that would be cool to have like something like a competition to like shoot for. She's like, sure, why not? Like she introduced me to this coach, and then before I know it, I'm training for a bikini fitness competition. And it's like intense. Like it is the most intense thing I've ever done in my entire life. I mean, we're talking about as far as like, it's no joke. Like, I don't know if anybody is familiar with bodybuilding and stuff like that. And clearly I'm not a bodybuilder.
Yeah, it's like dedication.
It's very, like, you take your food everywhere you go, you weigh, you measure, it's this amount of water, this really, really nuts. And so I ended up, you know, a lot of people don't make it to the stage. A lot of people quit along the way, I was told. So I was just proud that I made it to the stage. I didn't expect to win. Of course I didn't win, but I lost all of my weight. I had like 7% body fat. I was like ripped, you know, mostly just because I didn't have any fat on my body, not because I had a ton of muscle. I mean, I had muscle, but anyway, and that kind of set me up a little bit for a little bit of disordered eating, only because I wasn't really sure how to eat after that. Like right,
because you're so strict with everything.
Yeah, like there was this emphasis on reverse dieting, which thank God there was, because your hunger hormones are so faint, or excuse me, your hunger hormones are crazy, and your fullness hormones, there's like leptin and ghrelin. Those are the two hormones. And the one that registers when you're full is very faint when you're that low in body fat. And the one that registers your hunger is very loud. And so they're all out of whack. And so, I mean, I could eat and eat and eat and never, like, until I was literally sweating and sick. Yeah. And so they set up the reverse dieting for a reason, so you don't, basically kill yourself eat yourself to death. So I did that and reverse dieted successfully and got myself up to like a healthy body weight or healthy body fat. So it was like, went from like 7 to whatever it was at the time, 12, 15. Gained like 10 pounds back, which was help I needed to. And so, but even after that, like I didn't want to give up the macro count so at that point it was like, oh my gosh, like if I eat off plan, I'm gonna gain it all back. Like it doesn't, first of all, it doesn't work that way. And it took me a long time to realize that. But there was some disorder. Like I had to make a decision at one point, like, if you continue to go down this path, you're headed like, you're like barreling toward an eating disorder right now. Like that's sure in the future for you if you don't. And it was like more of a thinking thing. Like I just didn't know how to think about, like I didn't know. And so, and a lot of it was I'd worked so hard for this physique. I can't bear the thought of like losing control. Like I had so much control over this and I can't bear the thought of giving up this control over it. And oh my gosh, what if? So I just had to trust. I just said, and then it's the question of, I look the best I've ever looked in my entire life. Like I have never looked better, even when I was a teenager, but I am so miserable. Like to look that good and feel that unhappy, to be that miserable and hungry. And like, it was just so this weird, like mismatch. Like I wish I felt as good on the inside as I do on the outside. So I had to really just slowly let go of the macro counting and start trusting myself around food and eating intuitively. And that whole thing was a process. I mean, it was really a process. So I just, I know a lot of people listening will had been in that community. I know a lot of friends have been in, and it is, unless you're in it, it's one of those things that's very hard to explain. I was never a foodie. Never until I competed. It's weird, very weird. But so I lost the weight, and then I will say that one of the things that I walked away from with was my confidence levels were just very, very high. Like I felt like I finally accomplished. I finally did something. Oh man, I needed it so badly. And like I said, it could have been anything. That was just the thing that was in front of me. I will never do another one. But I felt so good, and so I was just eager to like, okay, what's next?
So things are going really well, and then once again you encounter a setback with your health. How did that interfere with the progress you've been making up to that point? So in 2018 you developed shingles.
Yeah. So I was really eager to parlay the fitness competition, like the fact that I'd done that, into like something, whether it's like, I don't know, doing food plans for people, because Lupe started asking me to, because I was so good at writing food plans that I started doing that for her clients, or health coaching, or like I was just looking for anything that I could like keep that momentum going. And so I was like, well, I think I'm going to start with a YouTube channel and go from there. That way I can sort of market myself, which, the videos are terrible, but I mean, my story is in there somewhere. It's in there, but they were not like well made. So, anyway, in the midst of me filming and publishing those, I got shingles, and it was like, and then it was like this big step back, and it was almost like, I don't know, I felt like God, the universe, whatever you want to call it, was conspiring to like get me to slow down. Like I was just, I don't know how to explain it. I felt like a horse behind a gate that just was so, just let me go. Like I have been held back for so long. Just let me at it. And it was like every time I tried something, I mean, the fitness competition I did, but anything after that I tried failed. Like I tried to start writing a book, and then my cognitive issues started getting worse. This was around the shingles time. Like everything I like touched was turning to crap. Like I could not get anything going. The health coaching thing was just a disaster. I did not feel, first of all, healthy. Like I felt like I have screwed up thinking when it comes to food. Like I was still trying to figure my own stuff out. And so I felt like, and then I started getting involved in some like nonprofit stuff, but that didn't exactly feel right. And I just wanted anything. But I think that ultimately what I was meant to do was to be still, which was really hard. And that's what the shingles kind of taught me, I think.
And I think you had mentioned too that you weren't really focusing so much on your children and family because you're so focused on like, I need to do something, get back to where I was before. So how did that change?
I felt like a couple things. So one night, as I told you, I was like really frustrated getting ready for bed, and I like heard this voice that like wasn't my own. Call it like the crazy voices in my head, or call it something more important. I believe it was something more important. Said, because I remember my thought in my mind when I was getting ready for bed was, "Oh my gosh, you've done so much. You look so good. You've come all this way. Like, wow, look the best I've ever looked." And then I heard quickly through my head, "Now do the inside."
Yeah.
And so, and I like stopped dead in my tracks, like, what that voice was saying was, "Okay, you've transformed the outside. Now do the inside." Right. So I like, and that's what I had to do. So for the next 5 years, I just got very, very centered, with my own self-awareness, self-actualization,
and you had even started therapy, I believe.
Therapy, in and out of, in it. Yeah, that was a story about that. Finding good therapists is not the easiest, which we know. Little plug for Katira. But so, yeah, like I was really, like I was trying to heal up anything that was unhealed on the inside to, offer more than my looks, Right. So it's like I had a confidence, but my confidence was rooted in my appearance, It's like rooted in the fact that I transformed it was rooted in the fact that I worked hard, sure.
Right.
But I never felt like I could bet on myself with my hard work because I had failed so many times. So I started to get really still and realize like, okay, like I realized there was more to me. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
It sounds weird, but it was like, I felt like I really developed my confidence in who I was as a person. Like, I really liked me, and I loved my kids, and I love my husband, and I love being home. And I just really, and what it taught me was how to be in like the moment and how to be very present. And how to like just slow down and enjoy like the little things. And, and I've spoken about this before. I slowed down so much that I never wanted to get going again. After that, like it was really hard after that to like ever, I was so happy just to like live day by day and just whatever the day brings.
Like a more simplistic life.
Yeah. Just whatever the day brings. I'm fine. I'm fine. So my kids were, they've always been, I've always loved being a mom, and they've always been the most important aspect of my life. But I always felt like I needed something else to fulfill me. Mm-hmm. And for like 5 or so years, the last 5 or so, I'd say 5 to 7 years, I've been completely full, like filled with just, my home life, and almost to the point where I never wanted to bring anything else. And who needs a social life? Who needs a career? Who needs this? I'm completely happy and content. Right. And I think when Jordan, graduated from high school and he moved out, that's the first time where it felt like I had all this space, this gaping hole left that like I needed to put something in it and didn't know. And I started to feel a little imbalanced then, but yeah, it was great. It was great. I needed it, clearly.
Right. And so, so after, the fitness competition, and you getting back, like with your trying to look at the inside, like repairing yourself from, internally, you, in 2021, you stopped taking all the pharmaceuticals that you had been taking that were helpful, right? And then in September of 2022, then you were introduced to a practitioner, and I think her name was Audrey.
Yep.
And what happened
Yeah.
when you met her?
So I was always worried that the regimen I'm on now, which is a cocktail of a couple medications, would be taken away from me because they're always trying to like try other things. Like, oh, what about this instead? What about that instead? And I'm like, you don't understand. This is the only thing that works, so really there's no side effects.
Right.
Like, I don't know. Like, and I was around. I can't explain it, but I was like, I want to see what my baseline is like without medication. So in 2021, I got paired up with like this addiction specialist because one of my medications is a narcotic. It's tramadol. It's very low narcotic, but very low dosage, 50 milligrams twice a day. Anybody wondering? And they're always trying to replace it. Like, how about Adderall instead? I'm like, how is that any better? Like, like tramadol, Adderall, like, what does it matter? So, anyway, so I got paired up with this addiction specialist to like safely take me off of everything. And then I did stay off of it for a while, but my quality of life, again, just like how it was back in the day when I tried holistic with no pharmaceuticals, it was like, I wanted so bad to be all natural, but it was like quality of life or natural.
Right.
Quality of life or natural. Like I tried it so long to just do natural, and I still hope to get there someday. Like I really have not given up on that. It's just about finding the right protocol. But anyway, so I got off of everything, and then ended up getting back on it like within a year, 6 months to a year, getting back on those medications, and then I was doing well. I have been doing well physically for the most part. I would say, you know, good days, bad days, more good days than bad. But cognitively, just still kind of a mess. Like I always felt like under the surface there was always like this need to cry. And that's not from being sad. It's from like, it feels like there's pressure almost, like
it's
emotional,
like a release of some
like a
sort.
release. Like I need to like let some air out of I don't know. And then like, it's almost like how it feels like when you're really stressed or when you have a high anxiety, but I don't really have I used to, but I don't really have high anxiety. It's just, it's a heaviness like in my body. And it affects my cognitive. I can feel the link between the two. And, cause the more prevalent that feeling is, the worse off my cognitive is.
Right.
So, just simple things like I couldn't figure out stuff like, and I feel so like a child, you know, like, and it frustrating because I'm like, why is this taking me so long? Why is this so hard? It shouldn't be this hard. I wish I'd come up with an example right now, but I can't think of anything. Just little things like even like answering an email or like making a phone call. Sometimes it'd be so hard because words wouldn't come, or I'd get the words wrong, or I couldn't figure out little everyday things. And, or I wasn't dependable in that way. So I met Audrey. You know, I needed to shore up. This weakness was just bugging me, and I met Audrey, and she's not a doctor. She's just a practitioner, and a solo practitioner, and she contracts with some different companies and doctors and stuff. And she put me on this herbal regimen, and she said she did muscle testing, which is like applied kinesiology, and I tested positive for Lyme, like reactivation of my Lyme, and also mold and parasites. And so she wanted me to put me on this protocol and everything. And I knew somebody that had done the protocol and had success. So, and I had nothing else, you know? And so I said, oh, you know, let's do it. And I'm like, I really don't think I have parasites. Cause even the test, the results were not high, but and so I didn't want to buy the supplements. Like I didn't want to like spend, because it's not cheap, but she's like, you do this and that. So, and I'm telling you guys this story for a reason. So I was on the Lyme, the parasite, the mold, you know, alternating and doing it from September of 2022 until May of 2023. And it took that long for me to pass 2 foot-long parasites. One of them I pulled out sounds really disgusting, but I promised my Instagram followers I would tell a story. In the shower, it was there, and I had to pull it out myself. It was like coming out on its own. And then one of them, came out in the toilet, but foot long parasites. I have never had a gastrointestinal issue. I have never had a symptom of parasites. The only symptom I've ever had is the cognitive stuff, which is a symptom. When I tell you that after passing those parasites, I got my brain back, and that feeling of needing to cry disappeared. It like lifted, and it was just absolutely like, it was like the last piece of the puzzle for the cognitive stuff.
Yeah.
I still physically require help, but I feel so sharp now, like mentally, and even when I'm not on my medication, I feel sharp, which says something. So, because I had to go, as you know, like there was a misunderstanding with one of my refills recently, and I had to go a couple of days without it, and I felt like crap physically, but mentally I still felt fine. So I really think that was the thing that was really bogging me down cognitively.
So looking back, you're glad that you actually
Spent
followed
the money.
her advice, spent the money.
That's the part that sucks is like some of the stuff that really works, the herbals, it's not cheap,
Yeah,
it's like, it's so
not.
expensive. Medical insurance doesn't cover it. That's why it's really frustrating, because people want to know, like, well, what worked for you? What did you take? And then not everybody, there was a point I couldn't afford this stuff, like I've been in those shoes, and it's really frustrating, because what do you do then?
Right.
What do you do? And so,
Yeah, there's not a lot of options.
I hate it. Yeah. I mean, the only thing I could hope for is to be able to get well enough to be able to do something meaningful with the experience I've had that will help others in some way, shape, or form. So that's kind of brought us to where we are now. And that was so I entered in January of this year. It was actually New Year's Eve. I was like I got in the shower, and I was like putting on these new PJs, these new New Year's PJs. We were going to watch a movie just at home and everything, like curled up at home on the couch and watch a movie. And I'm in the shower, and I felt like this drop. I always say it this way, this drop of inspiration like fell into my head like a raindrop. And it was like in literally like 2 seconds, it was start a podcast and like all the ideas for the podcast, everybody who I'd want to have on, who I'd want to do it with, how I'd want to do it. Like everything just like dropped into my head at once out of nowhere. I was not thinking about it. And remember, I was a homebody.
Right.
I didn't want to do anything. I was happy as a clam at home with me and my daughter, my husband. My son had just moved back to Sacramento. He's living in our rental house. And I was like, I love podcasts. I'm a podcast junkie. I listen to them all day, every day. It's a big part of my life, because everything I do, I've always have a podcast on. So I've always thought, how cool would it be to like sit around and just talk to people, like, and hear their stories. Like that would be so fun. What a great job. And I would love to do that, but okay, what would I do it on? Like, I'm not a professional. I don't know anything. Like, what would I talk about? And I got the idea for Humanity Unlocked, like literally that night. I didn't know that was going to be the name, but so I go downstairs and I tell Mark, what do you think about this? Like, and he was like, I think that's great. I think you could be great at it, And so I was like, okay, well, I'm not going to make any plans to do it, but in just knowing that it's out there, I'm just going to like file it away and then revisit it later.
Weren't putting any pressure on yourself.
No, I didn't want to. Believe me, I did not. I thought it sounded like a great idea, but I was in no rush to like, I was very happy with my simple little life. When I tell you, it's the happiest I'd been in a very long time, living off the grid and off the radar. And I mean, I just put it this way, when my phone dings and I get a text message, I get annoyed. Like, who's trying to get in touch with me? Like, I don't want to be bothered.
Right.
Like, that's how slow my life has slowed down to be. So, don't take that personally, anybody that's listening. I love you all. It's just that, like, that's how I am. Like, I just like to live every moment and not like to be, I don't want to be bothered with anything. So, except for, my home and my family. So anyway, but come January, I find out about this woman I follow her podcast. She's going to teach a course. And I love this woman. I love her podcast, and it's a reasonable price. So I was like, I think I should probably enter that course. And I don't really want to. Like, this was not supposed to be a today thing. And so I told Mark, and he's like, just do it. Like, you just do it. And
Yeah.
so
Again, when you
entered
have
the
to
course.
lose. Yeah.
Took the course, and the whole time I'm going, I hate this. Like, this is a lot of pressure, but I love the idea of what I'd be talking about and the people I'd be talking about to. And I just was like kicking and screaming, but I felt like this pressure to do it. It was a calling.
Yeah.
Like, I almost felt like the minute I was happy with my life, like everything had slowed down, I was feeling at peace. Like, I felt like it was like go time. Like, all right, lace up your shoes. Now it's time. Now we're going to put you, like, now we're giving you something to do. Mm-hmm. And I was like, now, and I felt like being like, now I just got comfortable here. Like, why now? And so it took a lot for me, a lot of like, I felt like it was this divine pressure of like, get her moving. Like, she's done. Like, that door is closed. And I just was very reluctant, but complied. Like, I'm like, I think I would be good at this. And I think I would enjoy this. Like, it was the two things that I'd always had a hard time finding that in a career, things I'd be good at. Plus I would enjoy, like, I'm good at staging. I don't really like staging. Like, it's okay. It's okay, but it's fine. Like, I enjoy the end product, but I don't love it. You know, like, this is a different thing. So, and a lot of that is just getting comfortable with being, because I was living so off the radar and being back on the radar, you know, where people expect to hear podcasts every week.
Right.
They expect social media updates.
And you're having to reach out to people and
having to be social, which I'd given up my social, all but pretty much given up my social life. It has nothing to do with anybody except for the fact, like, I just did not, as bad as this sounds, it's like I couldn't be bothered.
Right.
I could not be bothered to like move. I don't know. It's so silly. Like, not like literally, but like I was just my life had become so simple, and I was just so very happy with it. Like, just so very happy with it. And so now I just had dinner with a friend a couple nights ago, and I just said, I have just made the decision. I'm just going to say yes to everything, because it's the only way, you know, I just have to push through this and like learn to like rediscover myself. Cause this was me. I mean, let's face it, this used to be who I was for like most of my life, and I'm in there somewhere. So, I have been presented with many, many opportunities to meet new people. I've taken every one of them. I have met I've connected with tons of people, and I have so much interest in the podcast from people, which, you know, you don't know going in
what it's going to turn out to be.
You don't know if people are going to care, or they're going to want to listen, or they're going to want to be a guest.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I feel like I'm at a point now where I'm finally like, I'm pretty healthy, although I'm supplemented with medication. I live a healthy lifestyle. I love my family is still remains like my pride and joy and everything, and number one. And I would just love to be able to bring something to the table for once, you know, like I feel like I've been a taker, you know, for way too long. And in every capacity, like I give a lot to my kids and stuff, and my husband. Well, I probably give more to my husband, but how great would it be to have like an income to contribute, you know?
Right.
And also be a role model, because my daughter has grown up with a sick mom like her whole life. And you know, I don't want her to, I don't know, like I want to be a good example for her. I mean, my son is, you know, I don't know if it's because he's a boy, or you know, he's got two dads, a stepdad and his dad, Everett, who are great examples. And so I didn't feel the pressure, but with her, I do. Right. You know, not that she puts pressure on me, but I want her to know that setbacks are just that. They're just little setbacks. Like there's always, you know.
Like things in life can be difficult, but there's always a way to see the positive and push forward.
Yeah, it's never over. Like I always say, like it's not, and I still live I live like this is like all of this crap, like this is all temporary.
Yeah.
Like all of the stuff I'm going through, like physical, like my condition, all this stuff. I've always thought of it as temporary. This isn't who I am. And but for a while I thought that maybe this needs to be who I am. in order to excuse the life that I have. Like, maybe I need to integrate the fact that, oh, like, it needs to be almost like, hi, I'm Kim, the girl with Lyme disease, instead of like,
Right.
just like, I don't know, like, I needed something to legitimize me. And then I realized, like, I started to do that without even really realizing it, like using that as the reason why I wasn't doing something or was doing something or whatever. And I don't want Jasmine to see that. I want her to see that, like, yes, I happen to have this stupid condition.
Right.
Like, I manage it, but that's not my identity. And I think I lived with that as my identity for a really long time and didn't even really realize it because I thought I needed it to legitimize the inaction in my life, or like the
Right. This is why I'm not doing certain things because I have this, you know.
And I felt like nobody understood, and that's partly that's on me. Like, part of, you know, I mean, I don't know, like, there was a lot of over explaining on like social media, but not a lot of like me sitting my friends down or family and just being like, can I be real with you? And a lot of that's just fear, you know, just like fear of vulnerability, fear of rejection, fear of them not knowing, like I said in the intro, not knowing how to handle it. Like, what are they going to say? Is it going to be awkward? The only reason I know how to talk to people that have gone through difficult times is because I've gone through, you know, and I've talked to myself, and I just feel like it's instinct, I guess. And so, but a lot of people have instincts I don't have. Like, a lot of people, like my husband has many instincts I have zero instincts on, like directions for one. So I have instincts with people, and my experiences have helped me even strengthen those instincts. But we can't expect everybody to know how to handle those conversations. And for me, it was just felt very presumptuous to expect somebody to know how to handle my crap, like if I confided in them. So I did the, you know, the unhealthy thing, I'm sure, which is to just disappear.
Avoidance,
you know? Yeah. I don't know if there's a proper way to move through that space where you just are not even, you're not sure who you are, and you don't know how to, I mean, how do you? Like, I don't know. I think my mind was so compromised that it sort of was limiting me in that capacity too. I could now I could easily, but 10 years ago, and I'm in this thing 16 years. Although I think I'm like, I say I'm in it, but I don't know. I feel it's becoming less and less a part of me. So that feels good.
Right. And I think you had said something that struck me is like, you know, I realize I have too much to offer, and that I want my life to mean something. You know, and not just have this condition you've had for so many years define who you are as a person, because it doesn't.
Yeah.
You know,
It's so true. And I mean, I hope that I will be known for something more than somebody who, you know, managed an illness. Like, I want to be known for something more, and I don't even need to be like crazy successful. I mean, I'm not going to turn it away, but that's really not the aim. The aim is just, I want to have some purpose, and I want to be a good example. I want to have a reason to wake up, like a reason to move every day outside my normal environment and in my normal headspace, and I want to be a good example for my kids, and I want to contribute to my home, to my husband, you know, like I want to be a good counterpart. Like, I'm great. We're a great team, but so much has rested on his shoulders for so long. And I'm sure, I don't know if I'll ever make the kind of money he makes. Maybe not. I mean, I don't want to limit myself, but I just want to know that I'm like doing something that where the option is there that may, you know, so yeah. Yeah, I'm in a good place.
good.
Thanks so much for watching. If you guys enjoyed this conversation, please give it a like and leave me a comment. I want to know what you guys think. Also, if you're looking for more information about how to be a guest on the show, please go to our website at humanityunlockedpodcast.com. We only record shows in person, and we are located in Sacramento, California. Oh, and if you're not subscribed, make sure you tap that button so you can get updated on weekly episodes as they go live. Is that it? I think that's it. See you guys next time.